everybody. This is Joan, and we are live today. And today we're going to be talking about when the story is a struggle. And I have to say thank you to Kimberly. She's the one that was talking the other day, and she said, the story is just not going to write itself. So that gave me an idea of something to talk about. So if you're watching, let me know where you're watching from so I can make sure I say hi to you. And then I won't feel like I'm here all by myself. So, anyway, we're going to be talking about what happens when the story does not write itself, when the story is a struggle. So, if you've been right, and this is our Writer Challenge series, part 5, and so we're just kind of continuing on here with challenges that writers might be struggling with. Hi, Ken. He's in Central Illinois. So we're talking about the stories that don't write themselves. I don't know if you've ever had that moment, or maybe several moments where you sit down to write and the words just flow. I mean, I'm talking 4, 5, 6,000 words just in a few hours. I've had it happen a couple of times, and it's pretty amazing where you just start writing and you write and you write and the story comes out and there's no challenges. Everything just works perfectly. But then there's those moments which to me are more than the other, flowing moments when the story is a struggle. So, what do you do? Well, first of all, has this happened to anybody? Have you sat down to write? And I know we've talked about other struggles, but this one I'm going to kind of give a little bit more ideas on how to kind of get unstuck. But have you ever had that? You sit down to write and the words, 500 words, which is 2 pages, seems like it will take you hours. It's like time moves so slow that you're just like, I just can't do this today. So if that's you, just we're going to talk about how to get past that. So first of all, how to keep the story flowing. So one thing, if you handwrite, so this is for people that use pad and paper, and you write everything out by hand, switch it around. Use the computer. For some reason, um, using a different method. So, or if you use the computer, use a pad and paper. Ken says, yes, it has. Sometimes when it does, I go work on another work in progress, then come back. That is a good idea, getting away from it, walking away, because sometimes your brain just gets totally stuck. Like, I just can't make this work. So, um, kind of going in a different direction, working on a different thing. You can also, which I will tell you, this does not work for me, but I know it works for a lot of people. If you're like on page whatever, 50 or 100 of your book, skip ahead, skip a chapter ahead, skip a scene ahead or something like that and write the next scene. Like I said, I can't do that very well because I tend to write very, much in order, very linear. I don't skip around. I know some people that can, and it works well for them. So if you can skip the scene that's causing you problems, then do it and keep going. Here's another hint, and I'm looking at my notes here. Um, don't edit while writing. I know we've talked about this before, but sometimes editing while writing will make you get stuck. You'll just want to keep going back over and over and over again, and that doesn't work. Another thing is talk it out. If you have a writing friend, talk it out. If you have an app on your phone where you can talk, take a walk, do something else, and talk out the scene. A lot of times, just talking about it out loud, you can make the scene start flowing. But if those don't work, look at your characters. Ken said, I did that with the funeral chapter and wrote another scene. I came back to it later. Yeah, and I imagine that helped you because of that one scene was probably not easy to do. So, and that's, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, the scenes that are not easy to do. But let me get to these others. So look at the characters. Are they being true to themselves? Are you trying to make the characters do something that they wouldn't normally do? Because that right there can stop you. Trying to force our characters to be someone they're not is doesn't work very well. What about are they the same? Have they been the same through the entire book? There should be a character arc. They should be changing at some point. They should be doing something different. They should be reacting differently. And if they're acting the same, maybe you're kind of in a rut with them. Um, Throw in a new challenge for a character. That's always a lot of fun. Throw in a new challenge like make it tough, make something worse happen, if it's not bad enough already. Have something happen that will just shake up the scene completely. And it doesn't have to be a horrible thing, or it can be as much as losing their keys. What happens if they lose their keys? And how are they going to react to that? If they're in a hurry to get out the door, they're going to be frantic or frustrated. If their normal demeanor is calm, then it might bother them a little bit. But, what if they're rushing off to go meet up with a friend? Or what if somebody's in the hospital and they need to get there? So, there's different ways you can shake things up, especially with your main character. What about your protagonist, the bad guy? Have they changed or are they the same throughout the whole story? One thing is you want to make sure that they're having some sort of a character arc too, that they're changing throughout the story. Here's what I was going to say with the funeral chapter, Ken, is that looking at your own past, are you trying to write about a traumatic event or something that brings up triggers or memories from your own past? And if you are, sometimes those are the scenes that are hardest to write. I've had scenes where a main character passes away and it reminds me of my dad when he passed away, and I just can't write that scene. It's just too raw. And even though he passed away in 2010, sometimes I will still have that I want to say it's a trigger. It reminds me of the sadness, and I just don't want to write that scene. So, looking at our own past, looking at the things that caused us trauma, if we're writing those types of scenes, sometimes our brains just don't want to do it, so you need to come back to it. Another thing is how about introducing a new character? Just throw in somebody walking by on the street. If they're in a grocery store, have somebody come up to them. My characters are in a crafter's outlet, so I can have a lot of very interesting either townsfolk or tourists come in that can stir things up a little bit and ask questions, or you know uh, just make things different. It's not the same cast of characters. It's somebody brand new with a handlebar mustache that speaks, has a gap tooth smile or something like that. Um, Ken says, yes, absolutely. The funeral scene and before that when they're at the hospital. Yeah. And so keep an eye out, keep your a heart check, when you're writing scenes that bring back memories of the past. Go easy on yourself. If it's hard to write the chapter, like you said, you go on to another work in progress and come back, because those are the emotional scenes that we need to write, but sometimes we're just not there, right? Our we got to be in the right mindset to write those kind of scenes. So, adding a subplot, that's another thing is, you've got your plot going along and maybe you need to add a subplot, something different that happens, which, can include new characters. It can include a secondary character, or just something else to twist things around a little bit, to add, a little bit of sprinkle of something new in there. You can change up the weather. Weather's a good um, distraction. Ken says, absolutely, the big red hanky works. Yep, I know. Those are the sad ones. Those are the hard ones to write. Um, let's see, a subplot. And what about your character's backstory? Now, that's another thing, is that, we're not going to be writing the entire character's backstory, but think about something from their backstory. I know we've talked with Ken, we've talked about his one character. Oh my gosh, I want to say Little Tommy, I think that's his name or something. I might be wrong. So if I am, I'm really sorry. And how he had issues with a drag race a long time ago. And so his past still comes back to haunt him. And so, you know, look at the backstory. Look at something else that could happen in the story that's going to bring back a trigger for the character. And okay, yay, I got it right. sometimes, sometimes the brain doesn't fail. Yay, yeah, little Tommy and the drag race. Um, so it's you know, we're looking at our past will bring up triggers, of course, but our characters, even though there are characters, they have things in their past. Ken says exactly. Um, you know, they have things in their past that are going to affect how they react and how they're not only reacting to other people, but reacting to different situations. So when you kind of bring all these things together, think about like a stumbling blocks. Think about something. Now I know little Tommy, you know, the drag race and all that kind of stuff. But what about if and I'm just using Ken's for an example because I've read some of his that, you know, what if all of a sudden there was another drag race in town? You know, how would he react and what would he say to these young kids that are doing something stupid racing through the middle of town? Because it's going to bring back a lot of bad memories for him. And so think about things that have traumatized your characters or caused them um, challenges in the past and bring up something similar in the story. And so it's kind of like a parallel, you know, to something that happened in their past. And that will give you something else to write about too. And, you know, these are all ways to kind of get unstuck from the writing that's a struggle. You know, if you're sitting there writing and it's just coming out, don't change it, you know, don't do anything to change it. But if you're writing and you're stuck and you've walked around the block and you've, you know, changed from writing with a pen to the computer and everything else and you went to a different scene or something, you know, there's a couple of ideas here that can help you. Anybody have any questions? Ken, I know you're on here. I'm not sure if anybody else is right now. I know a lot of people were going to watch it on the replay. And by the way, thank you for everybody watching the replay. I appreciate you tuning in. If you have questions during the replay, make sure you write them in the chat, and then I can address them later when I see them. So if there's no other questions, I'm just going to say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope this has helped. I know for me, I have had those moments more than enough times when I'm stuck, and I like to bring a new character and somebody that's just a bit part that's, you know, only there for a little bit, but it just kind of it moves the energy around a little bit. Or um you know, subplots, you gotta kinda follow through with those. So it's hard to kinda put something and then just walk away from it. So if you wanna put something that's gonna, you know, last for several chapters or whatever. Ken says, "I can't think of anything. Absolutely, thank you. Very helpful. You are welcome." So anyway, if you have questions, put them in the chat. If not, I will talk to you all again next week. Thank you.